Welcome, Saahil. It's a delight to be back here with you this year. We were here exactly a year ago. Lots of great things happening at Shiprocket. For those of you who are new to Shiprocket, Saahil is building India's largest e-commerce enablement company, and we're excited to have him at the conference with us. Saahil, help us understand sort of your origin story. You started out in 2014, Gautam and you started building Shiprocket. So tell us a bit about your journey.
Yeah, first of all, pleasure to be here. Great to be here with everyone every year, meeting other companies, meeting all the partners at March. I think we started in 2012, and the genesis of the idea and the business was to go after the SMB market of India, trying to focus on giving them the right set of tools to go online, build a business, scale a business, and so on. And we were heavily inspired by the Shopify business model and the application model. So that was the initial kind of product. And while we got sort of early adoption, we were not really able to scale it, given that the sort of demographic in India, the willingness to pay, the sort of lack of the DIY culture, lack of subscription billing for software, all of those challenges existed in the market. And we weren't really able to distribute at scale. So we kind of moved through our first pivot into utilizing mobile and data and going after sort of the longer tail of the market. And we did that by creating a free platform that anybody could use, get onboarded instantly. At least the listings were happening and flowing automatically. And as we went through that motion, what we realized is that the reason Shopify was so successful in the US was not because it had the best shopping cart platform. I mean, that was one of the reasons. But the reason it actually became such a huge success was because they were able to plug into the various components of the ecosystem, specifically payments or shipping and a bunch of apps and so on. And we found that those digital components in India didn't exist. So we were trying to kind of solve this problem backward by trying to build the application layer first without actually having the components being present. And that's what got us to our final kind of version with Shiprocket in 2016, where we narrowed down on shipping as a big part of the market. Back then, India was still very rich in cash on delivery. 80% kind of orders were going through a cash on delivery kind of method. So it really became payments and shipping, both bundled into one kind of big challenge area. And as we did that, we were able to unlock the market. We were able to really grow fast. And tap into this new burgeoning direct commerce market of India. So it's kind of been an interesting journey. We kind of learned the hard way how to sell software to merchants in India. It's all metered today. It's done in a way where it's completely merchant success backwards. It's almost always a derivative of their success. It's not fixed fee. It's not monthly. That's sort of not the pay as you go, has a completely different meaning in India.
Well, it does, and much smaller ticket sizes, as Vasu was telling us on another panel. But why is India an exciting e-commerce market? Why should we care?
Yeah, I think India is going through its own time in that sense. I think the next couple of decades are going to be very exciting for India. I mean, the big takeaway is the sort of GDP and the disposable income. It's going to be nearly double in the next 10 years. So the projection is that it's going to be about $4,000 per capita, which is a 75% growth from today. And what we've seen with markets like China is that at that 3,000, 3,500 kind of number, things start to inflect at a very different rate of change when it comes to all kinds of markets. We have about 1 billion plus users that are on the internet. There's 250 million shoppers, soon to become 500 million shoppers. UPI, which is India's real-time payment system, comprising of nearly half of the world's real-time transactions today, did about 3 trillion in value last year, and that's projected to be about 10 trillion by 2030. So there's a lot going on within the India demographic, and more particularly within e-commerce. What's exciting is, if you think about sort of the makeup of the commerce market in India, a third of the transactions today do not happen on any shopping cart, right? So India is about 75 billion of e-commerce today. And a third of the transactions are actually over a chat on Instagram or WhatsApp, which is very unique about India, and it shows kind of how the market has evolved in the Indian context as we've kind of leapfrogged into using more technology.
So what you're saying is, I see your ad on Facebook or Instagram, and I want to make a purchase. I'll reach out to you through WhatsApp,
Yes.
and you will enable that transaction for the merchant?
That's right. So we come in and we kind of help them capture that transaction and then, convert it into an order, kind of act like their order management system, ship it for them, and then track it and communicate to the buyer.
Got it. So this speaks to sort of one difference between India as a market and the US as a market. So just take a step back. In the US, e-commerce has been winner take all. Amazon owns a majority of the market.
Yeah.
Of course, there's Shopify. Help us understand how India is different in terms of its buying behavior and what your opportunity is.
Yeah, so I think in every geography, there are two ways of conducting commerce. You've got sort of the marketplace style of commerce where it's really focused on the shopper and the consumer, and everything that's done within that ecosystem is to make it cheaper, better experience, and so on. But for the consumer, so the merchants don't really kind of matter much, and if it was up to the marketplace, they would retail every order if they could, right? So the design of that is sort of consumer backward. It's great, we're all used to shopping on Amazon and so on. But then you've got a more direct way of selling as well, where micro brands, digital brands, offline brands want to also have a portion of their sales, or all of their sales in some cases, directly between themselves and their consumer. And that's where you can look at Shopify as an example. There are many other examples around the world. And this is about 40% in the US. So a large part of that is led by the big offline brands that we all know of and love, but also a lot of digital brands and a lot of smaller brands. So the way it works is by sort of creating a single system where everything from ads, discovery, checkout conversion, shipping, warehousing, customer service, loyalty, it needs to come into the same platform to make all of this seamlessly work. And marketplaces like Amazon do it with the intent that I described, but they do it well by controlling it in a closed loop kind of ecosystem. Shopify in the US has done it, again, in a way where they've made it more open, relatively more open, but they've gone out and integrated with payments and shipping, and now they actually own parts of that as well. I think Shiprocket's done the same thing, where we started with the hardest part, which was shipping, but then since have gone back into kind of enabling checkout, enabling payments, working on ways to help merchants improve their conversion rates, and working on CS and loyalty for the consumers to, again, create a single stack where merchants can easily avail of all of these things under the same roof. Tremendous headroom as well. I think India internet penetration, digital retail penetration is only 6%, and direct commerce as a share of the total market is also only 10%. So there's a lot of headroom over the next 5 to 7 years.
So you got, what, a few 100,000 merchants you serve every month? And these merchants, so India has started investing in something called the India Stack, which is digital public infrastructure. Help us understand how this plays into your business and whether it's a tailwind for your business or it hurts your business.
No, I think the last 5 years or so of the India Stack story in India has been phenomenal. And I'll go through a couple of examples. If you think about Aadhaar, which is India's sort of identity system, I want to say kind of like Social Security here, but it's still different in some ways. There's 1 billion people on that system today. It's allowed companies like us to onboard merchants in 30 seconds or less because it's all hooked up, it's digital, it's made available by the government, it's secure, and so on. If you talk about UPI, that's making payments frictionless and is making inclusivity possible by getting the smallest of the merchant and the grassroots consumer to be able to interact in a seamless fashion. And ONDC, which stands for Open Network for Digital Commerce, is actually a big kind of echo of our mission statement by the government, where they actually want to encourage more direct commerce as well, breaking away from the chains of sort of some of the larger horizontal players to not allow polarization to happen. So we work with the government on all 3 initiatives very closely. In some places, we're actually at the forefront helping drive some of the agendas here, being part of the think tank that actually helps build all of these things. And in some other cases, we're consumers of these services, like many other startups in India.
So thematically, what you're saying is the guidance of government in India is, or the direction is, they'd not like to see monopolistic marketplaces, they much rather see merchants having access to software tools that can be used for commerce.
That's right.
And that's sort of a space that you play in.
That's right, and I think it's interesting because if you look at India, we actually have not replicated the US model of a big box retail like a Walmart, for example. That's not gotten replicated in India, even though organized retail has grown. And I think that's because the demographic dispersion is pretty big in India, and there are lots of many-to-many kind of interactions, right, where shopping is still a high-touch kind of an environment, even in the digital world, and hence the whole conversational commerce. That's a replication of what happens in the offline world, where you kind of want to talk to somebody. Trust is low in general. Having that person on the other end of the line kind of builds more trust, especially in the new to e-commerce or new to digital kind of populations. So I think the dynamic in India is unlike the US or like China, is unique in its own way. And given that we have much more self-employment than formal employment, which means entrepreneurship, 60 million micro and small businesses exist in India. There are so many kinds of buyers and so many kinds of stratas that consume that I don't think it's possible for like one platform to kind of go win it. It's going to be a series of platforms, a series of formats of e-commerce that come through, and which is why we've chosen to stay in the components business to say, if live commerce takes off or more conversational commerce takes off, we don't want to try and predict what shape commerce is going to take, but we know that the fundamental components around payments, shipping, service, trust, those are going to be needed. So we're trying to lay down the highway almost of the best components out there, so everyone ends up building on top of those components, and that's how we kind of stay relevant and keep embedding into the fabric.
Awesome. So Saahil, help us understand, what's the size and scale of business at Shiprocket?
So we power about 5% of all of India's e-commerce. Direct commerce is about 10 billion. We power about 3 billion of that. So we are market leaders in our own segment. We work with about 250,000 small businesses till date. Powering about 200 million transactions on a yearly basis. And we continue to grow between 30 and 50% depending on the year at the moment. And historically, we've grown 70, 80%.
And the way you make money is it indexed to your GMV? Is it indexed to transactions, orders? How do you charge?
It's all of that in some ways. And basically, we have 3 platforms that we operate. So we have the supply chain platform, which is the flagship core business with the core focus of enabling shipping. We have a MarTech platform, which is a more recent launch in the business, where we are focused right now on higher conversion rates and checkout. And then we've also started to enable cross-border exports for merchants as well. In the shipping businesses, it's a per shipment kind of a model. So it's metered revenue in that sense. We make money when our merchants ship. To give you an example, if you think about Shopify stack, and we're very similar to that in the billing model. At the bottom end, you've got the sort of web cart or whatever, the SaaS offering, which is paid for in subscription. And the first derivative is a merchant success, where the moment the merchant makes a sale, accept a payment, make a shipping, Shopify makes money. And the second derivative is when they have apps or third parties writing into them, where when the merchant makes money, they make money and Shopify makes money. I think we're set up exactly the same way, where the difference is that the core software layer is free. We don't actually charge for it, because that's what allows us to be able to onboard sort of hundreds of thousands of merchants, get 100 million consumers that we've worked with so far, and so on. And then we index all of our earnings on the first derivative, which is when merchants make money, or when they save money, or when we make them extra money, we make money, right? So it's designed that way because that's much more palatable to the Indian SMB. And it can be money for shipping. It can be technology revenue that they give us for micro vertical SaaS per order. In the case of checkout, it's actually indexed directly to the GMV. In some cases, we do fintech and insurance, again, which is an index of GMV. So it's a mixed bag, but it ultimately boils down to about 5 to 6% of the GMV that we power is what we make as revenue today.
So that's interesting, and I just want to take a minute and just pick up on something you said. So you speak about a concept of sachet payments, which is unique to India, which is that people don't want to pay for software. but they're happy to pay per transaction that you help enable for them, and you can pay per transaction or per order.
Yeah.
And in the US, if I was looking at this slide, I'd say that there'd be 3 different companies building each of these value propositions.
Yeah.
And the reason you can do this in India is what is the common theme that ties all of what you deliver to these people?
So I think the way the platform is designed is we actually become this ecosystem enabler. We work with nearly 200 partners spanning all the way from payments to ads to shipping to warehousing. And rather than us manufacturing those services, we actually act as a layer or a middleware almost with workflow, data, AI, intelligence, dispute management, like all of that stuff built in, focused very tightly on the merchant that we are serving and kind of putting them at the center of our universe to say, okay, well, these are long tail merchants. Just to give you guys an idea, typically they sell maybe between $10,000 and $200,000 a year. That's roughly the size of these merchants. So they're quite tiny, I mean, from that perspective. And for them to be able to avail of all of these things, it's impossible for them to go and make it to these larger services or hard services of the ecosystem. So what we've done is we've built a platform where we connect the merchants onto us, and then we become consumers of those services, and then further make them available. And that's how we are able to kind of do all of this in the same platform and use our distribution to continue to sell more and more things to the same base that we power today.
Got it. So you touched upon something. This entire conference has been about the emergence of AI, the dominance of AI. Are you guys thinking about how you use your data and how AI plays into your strategy?
Yeah, I mean, it's essential. And we were just with John Chambers this morning where I think it was made quite apparent that if you don't do it, then you're dead. It's not even about being left behind. I think India has a very unique opportunity in general when it comes to sort of data and AI, given that there's sort of information, polarization in some ways, or awareness polarization in some ways in the different startups of the market. And also, I think there is a big opportunity with conversational style interactions, or it can give birth to new kinds of workflows that don't exist today. And India may be the first ones to come up with it. We actually collect data from a variety of sources because the way the platform is designed is we end up being a system of record or like a back office for the merchants we work with. So we get large pools of data for catalog, large pools of data for consumer behavior, what they shop for, where do they live because we ship to them, large pools of data for orders and for the supply chain that we manage. And all of this put together allows us to make several interventions. To give you an example, we actually predict returns. So India has a problem with returns before delivery. It's a known problem of the market. And we've been able to influence that number by as high as 6 or 7%. So imagine when we power a $3.5 billion kind of sale value, we've actually made an impact of about 200 million in sales that's purely done through data and prediction, right? Where we've served 100 million consumers, we know their behavior, we know how much time they spent, let's say, shopping on the checkout, what category they are buying, are they from Google, is it intent-based or impulse-based? So to kind of put all of that together and then predict a return is magic for many of our sellers because it's a straight 5% extra to their bottom lines. And that's just one example. As you think about the future, the Gen AI component is very exciting as well, especially for the sort of easy onboarding of merchants for the tasks that they may have to do today. It's much easier for us to reach even more people. What the mobile app kind of did for us 5 years ago, I feel like this can again give us another inflection by going further deep into the consumer side or the merchant side by really creating new interfaces which are purely conversational.
So now that you're sort of almost the 4th largest e-commerce merchant in India, well, not a merchant, but
sure.
The volume of shipping, what are your plans for the next 2 to 3 years?
I think I'll quickly touch upon sort of some roadmap items, and we'll also talk about the financials. Right. So within the shipping business, I think the need in India is to kind of, expectation from consumers rather, is to get things delivered faster, have more transparency, and have more choice in terms of what they want to do. So we're working on the supply chain network to make that happen. We are also going after other SMB merchants that can avail of this service, which may or may not be online today, which could be running a shop counter in a market, for example. And we want to create entrepreneurs on the supply chain side as well by going after what we are calling community logistics, getting smaller businesses to kind of connect with us to run the supply chain components and have small merchants on the other side who can then kind of use these services. So that's coming up on the shipping side. On the checkout side, again, BNPL is a big kind of phenomena in India as it is in the world. We're about to launch guarantees on the checkout this year, which will again kind of bridge the trust deficit between the consumer and the merchant. And we are moving towards creating, again, intelligence-based discounting, boosting AOV for our merchants on the checkout. We're launching a headless checkout as well this year and going after more developers to kind of work with us. And the cross-border business, I think again, a lot of opportunity there, lots of great tailwinds. We're focused on helping merchants move bulk movement as well, and then get into helping them list their items on various marketplaces and generate orders. So that's the rough roadmap over the next 2 to 3 years. And I think we ultimately have a very large opportunity ahead of us. We could be $1 billion in revenue by 2030. And today, of the 10 billion market that we target, we're about 25% in market share. We make 5 or 6% in take rate. We think that with everything we're doing and with sort of all the things happening in India, in about 6 to 7 years, or 6 years, this number could be about 40 to 50 billion of a market size. We could be about a third of the market, and we could make 6 or 7%, which brings us to like $1 billion in revenue. We are nearly profitable, and we are targeting an IPO in the next 12 to 18 months.
Fantastic. We have a couple of minutes. If there's any questions, we're happy to take them. Okay. So this is great. So we seem to have covered it all. We have a question there.
I think we want to do it in India, given that we have a significant advantage on 2 accounts. One is that it's actually great for our merchants to see us listed. It's a big trust builder for our customers to be working with sort of a validated company, so to speak. And as we get deeper into the grassroots in India, it makes a huge difference. And the second thing is that we think that right now the multiples on the Indian market are like no other market. And I think because there is scarcity, because there are, we're just at the beginning of this journey, I actually think that for a platform-style company like ours, we would fare much better being on the Indian Stock Exchange. So I think that's the plan. Now again, things can change, but that's the plan at the moment.
Fantastic. Saahil, thank you for making the trip here. Thank you for being a March portfolio company. It's been exciting working with you and looking forward to doing more of it.
Thank you, Rajan.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot. Great chat. Thank you.
Thank you.